The Building Better Business podcast is the best place to learn how to take your business to the next level. It's no longer enough to earn good profits. You need to develop a network of connections as well as use all types of marketing to your advantage that will put you over the edge. Hosted by me, Steve Eschbach, a financial executive with decades of experience in dealing with businesses and business people, we'll learn how this all comes together. Join me and my expert guests as we delve into the many facets of owning the business and how to become a good, caring business owner. Listen how making a difference in your community can attract all sorts of clientele, which in turn will build you a better business. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on the day you're listening to this podcast. My name is Steve Eschbach. I own a business called Transworld Business Advisors here in Naperville, Illinois, outside of Chicago. And you are now participating in my Building Better Business podcast series, and I thank you very much for joining. I'm delighted to have one of my local networking connections, Maren Rosenberg. She owns a business here in Chicagoland. She's going to tell us a little bit about that business and the other endeavors that she's involved with and give you her perspective on how she's gotten to be where she is today. So first of all, Maren, thank you very much for joining us, and good day to you.
Oh, it's really nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is explore your background. We're going to take you back many, many years. Maybe it's not as many as me, but we're going to take you back to your childhood and then your formative years in high school and college, and then how you got to be where it is and how your vision for today and the future is. So let's start there. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. proper. Much respect for those who are from Maryland and Virginia, but I'm actually from D.C. And I went to all 12 grades of school there, and then afterwards graduated and went to acting conservatory in Philadelphia. I did work as an actor as a child in the D.C., Baltimore area, and also, would perform in plays, both with folks my age, but also professionally. So with, being the surrogate child, running across the stage, doing the cute thing, and then, I'd leave. So I've always loved the arts, and I've always loved creativity. And I've always been a little bit of an organizer. In high school, I did a lot of community service work. In Washington, D.C., you're required to do 100 hours of community service to graduate from high school.
Oh, wow.
So a number of students were short on community service hours come our senior year. So I would, organize a great big project so that everyone would have an opportunity to get enough hours to graduate. And I've always been a pretty good systems thinker as far as figuring out all the different parts and how it went together. But one of the things I really love about acting is it does really give me the job to focus in on like one specific character or one specific element of it.
Sounds exciting there. So now tell me how, A, you got from Washington to Chicago, that's A, and then B, we haven't even talked about the business that you own and operate, so we'll get into that a little bit. So how did things go from you going from Washington, D.C. to Chicago? And then tell us a bit about your current business that you own and operate.
So from Washington, D.C., I graduated with a Bachelor's of Fine Arts from the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. I then afterwards decided that I wanted to spend some time traveling and working overseas. And when I wanted to move back to the United States, I love Washington, D.C., but I don't always like Washington, D.C. And my mother's family is located outside of Chicago in DeKalb, Illinois. I also had my brother and his wife were here at the time. My brother's wife was going to law school. And so it felt like, we'll give Chicago a try. About a year after moving here, I met my husband, and he is originally from Little Rock, Arkansas, but his family and he have been here since he was 5 years old. 4 years old. He's giving me hand gestures from off the screen. And I have found that this has been a really nice mix of sort of faster metropolitan kind of living, but also folks that I think are a little less prickly and a little kinder in general as we go here. And so I originally moved here to work exclusively as an actor and a performer, but then ended up transitioning into being an entrepreneur. I started my own business in 2015 after helping open the first escape room kind of unintentionally in Chicago in 2013. It's a little bit of a funny story. I hadn't gotten the job that I normally would get at Navy Pier performing in their holiday. In there, I guess they do like a winter wonderland type thing, and was teaching, and my teaching schedule conflicted with some of the rehearsal and performance times. So I didn't get hired, and I was scrambling to find another holiday gig last minute, and someone was looking for zombies. And so I wrote this really cheeky email because I'd probably had a glass of bourbon, and it was 2:00 in the morning, and it was 2 a.m. And I'm like, and this is obviously not a professional theater artist. They were asking me much more sort of traditional work, business interview questions like, give us 3 reasons why you think you'd be great for this role. Mm-hmm. So I got quite sassy and was like, well, I'm a vegetarian, so if I am a method actor, it doesn't matter. I won't eat your guests. Meh. The gentleman calls me back the next day, and he's this larger than life, wild guy who got sort of this business idea. To give you a sense of who he was, he used to be a professional mascot, and then he became a day trader in the late 80s, early 90s, lost a great deal in 2008 in real estate, and now he produces events. And so he had this room escape thing, and we figured out how to make it work together. And after a year and a half, he effectively said, I can't afford to keep you, but I want to be supportive of you. Let me give you some seed money, and I'd love for you to go and start your own business, and we can be brother and sister companies.
Let me ask you a question. Did you have business ownership in mind when he approached you with that, or was that kind of out of the blue? No. So
that has never crossed my mind. I was getting ready to have the you need to fire me or you need to pay me more conversation, and he sort of threw in that third. But what about option C? So yeah, being a business owner was never something I had planned for. Obviously, as a performer and actor, you have to be a little bit of a business owner in that you are, managing your own accounts and you are your business, but it's quite different than, running a more traditional business.
So I got to believe you had some partners to help you along the way. So Maren wasn't the sole entrepreneur. She had a team. I think your husband helped you out. You probably had some others outside of the family there. Tell us a little bit about starting it up in 2015. What pieces of advice did you get from some of the outside folks looking in and et cetera? And, so we're talking about 5 years ago. How did you get 5-6 years ago? And how did that all develop to where you are today?
So 5 years ago, when I started my business, it was myself and my design partner. We would sort of joke that she handles the machines and I handle the people. She does all the building of the stuff and I did all the building of the, there's a little tiny document in our lobby, which is here's our occupancy placard and our business license. So we can sort of point to the giant CTA train that we built out of recycled and repurposed materials and say, she built most of that and Maren built most of that poster. I was very fortunate to have my business, I started with, a little bit of money. My former boss, was there to sort of tell me some of the things that he had learned. But to be perfectly honest, I'm pretty sure part of the reason he wanted me to start my own business was because he wanted me to figure out the right way to do it. He was sort of a better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission type. And I'm very much a do things by the book, detail-oriented person. So he had some advice for me. My mother-in-law also has been an entrepreneur for a number of years. She has a salon and gallery in Evanston. And so there are definitely times, especially in the beginning when the city of Chicago was making me jump through all sorts of ridiculous hoops to telling me I needed to get a professional public place of amusements business license as opposed to a traditional business license. And I really felt frustrated and discouraged. She was there to sort of talk me through it and be like, they're just forms, just do what they ask and you'll be able to start doing the part of this job that you are good at and that you like. So it was definitely very encouraging. I've always had the support of, my family, my husband's family. We're all quite close. And a lot of it has been because it's not a traditional business. I've had a lot of just kind of figuring it out as we go along. We went from having 2 other competitors in the city to having 17 in the course of a single year, and that was in 2017. So flipping from a supply and demand to a differentiation model was definitely a fun marketing challenge.
So tell me a little bit about your business. We kind of know what it is, but we don't know the specifics. I mean, I know what an escape room is. Some others might know what an escape room is. How would you best describe your business? It's an entertainment venue. I would probably guess you would describe it as that, but you've got 6 different rooms, I understand, with a Chicago theme. What is the whole nature of your entertainment venue for your customers?
Sure. Escape Artistry is a Chicago-centric escape room venue. If you don't know what an escape room is, the easiest way to describe it is we've built a train, and you and your team get on the train, and you suddenly discover the train has been tampered with by a comic book style villain. You also discover that you get 60 minutes to find a bunch of clues and solve a bunch of riddles, and which will allow you to stop the train, save yourselves in the city of Chicago. Again, you have an hour. So it's kind of like getting to live in a video game for an hour. Everything that we've built is specific to Chicago. So we've based our themes on Chicago's past, present, and future, and we have a bit of a time travel theme. We have 2 physical locations in Wicker Park. One is in the Flatiron Arts Building, right at the intersection of Milwaukee North and Damon. And the other is just about 5 to 10 minutes down the street, depending on how quickly you walk. And that is our 1342 Time Gallery location. That one has 5 rooms. In addition, we have a sort of party and workshop space, as well as a large lobby, which we have rented out for special events. Everyone who works with our company in one respect or another is an artist. So in addition to just being able to, have fun folks around, I feel really fortunate that I'm able to help provide year-round income for folks who can then also go off and play in a band that's opening for the Misfits, or, really let someone hone their sushi making skills because what they really want to be is a chef.
There you go. The collaborative effort. You now can delegate your phone calls to someone else who's with you.
Exactly.
Just getting back to your business that you run, it's and I've done it, and many people may not have done it, but the whole idea behind an escape room is to get 10 or 12 people together in a confined area to collaborate and determine ways to stop that train so you can get off and save yourself. It's a lot of fun. It really is. But the essential part of that is that you have to trust in your fellow event members to collaborate, because it's tough to do it on your own. But if you're willing to share the ideas and share your findings, I think that's to your success. Am I right?
That's exactly correct. We draw on our entertainment background, so ours is maybe more immersive and than some other venues. But the thing that you will always find true with escape rooms is that there is a series of clues and puzzles and riddles, and a group of people is tasked with having to work together. I suppose you could all try to do it independently or individually, but I've never seen a group be successful when they were more interested in being the first to do it. So it does really highlight a lot of important elements of teamwork, communication, staying organized, staying on task, time management. And before the pandemic, a fair amount of our business, I would say our second largest source of income was corporate team building outings. I think a lot of larger organizations really got hip to the fact that this was a nice way to do some team bonding. It's also fun. We do a lot of work with education as well. And what's nice is that we are able to create safe places for people to make mistakes. The train's not actually going to crash if you don't solve it in time. But it gives people an opportunity to play and to really be focused on one thing for an hour as well. You don't have your cell phone, you don't have a laptop, and you just are charged with working with your brain and the brains that are in the room with you.
Absolutely. So let me ask you a question. Now, you relied on your mother-in-law who owns her own hair salon, and I would imagine you've actually counted with other business owners. What would you say was the most prominent or the biggest piece of advice you got between when you started to right now? So what would you say is the single element or single idea that really kind of guided you accordingly?
I would say I've had a pretty rough sort of put your nose to the grindstone and just kind of learn as you make mistakes kind of business education. I did do the 10,000 Small Businesses program as well. And it's a Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. And that's sort of, think of it as like a baby MBA program. And I would say some of the biggest pieces of advice or things that I needed to learn, unlearn, or relearn were that I'm trying to think of sort of one that's happy and inspirational, but I can't. The one that's coming to my mind right now is really make sure you know and trust the people. If you get into business with them, you can always, I grew up with the idea that, banks were out to get you. But, people are good. And I think people generally are good. But once you get into a business relationship with folks, it's really like it can become a messy, terrible divorce, which I've had the unfortunate experience of. So once you decide to go into business with someone, you have to have very clear roles, responsibilities, expectations, and you have to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And that includes having a clear contract, having clear roles and expectations. And also that as a business grows and develops, some of the people who were really vital to getting the business started may not grow with the business. They may be interested in staying exactly where they are. And rather than, rearranging your business or life to make sure that they have something to do, release them back to the workforce so that they can be available to pursue other opportunities. I would also say something that I what felt happy to hear, but sort of think I sort of got on a gut level before was when I was in the small business classes from 10KSB, they said, hire for skill, hire for fit, don't hire for skill. Skills can be taught. But I think it is very, very important to have a company culture, both for a branding and marketing point of view, but also so that you can make sure that you are finding and attracting the right types of folks who are going to work with the other people in the space. Regardless of what people are doing for work, it is a collaboration as soon as you involve other people. And so it is important that the people get the culture and get the vibe as well as the actual skills.
So that probably answers my next question. My next question was going to be, what piece of advice would you give other business owners? And I'm getting a sense that what was given to you is something that you relay on to others, is that you need to really know, like, and trust the people you work with to be successful.
Yeah. And I would say you can't know or grow your business until you know it yourself. And I think that it's very important for you to have a strong identity before you start inviting other people into it, so that rather than all of us being in this sort of awkward, when you're like a teenager and you're like, who am I? And I don't know. And, I think when you're a business owner, it's very important that you know who you are as a person, know what your priorities are, and then you find people who are going to complement, that existing company culture, rather than being like, oh, we're going to build it together, because pretty much everybody else is going to look to you and just go, so what are we doing, boss?
Yeah. So I have the distinct pleasure of knowing you and your business. So with an escape room, it primarily was that you come to my shop and we will entertain you. But of course, everyone knows that with our pandemic, things have had to change a little bit. So I know you've moved some of them to virtual. I know you've moved the way you have people come into your location, like a private event versus a public opening. And then the other thing would be is that you've offered a different type of program that's virtually. And then your facility that you work at can be used as backdrops for other types of events. I've been very vague with that. So describe how you have adapted to the new environment here that unfortunately many of us have to adapt to.
Yeah, one of the benefits of being a creative and, again, playing to our strengths is that we are adaptable, and we are used to coming up against challenges and having to just figure out how to find a new way around it. So if our goal is to provide immersive entertainment, and we are faced with the limit of not being allowed to physically be in proximity with one another, we did adapt to we used to allow folks to create groups out of, mixed groups. I think like when you go to a movie theater, you buy 2 tickets and someone else comes as a group of 4, but you're all watching the movie together. This is a little more intense because you're all stopping the runaway train together. You do actually have to communicate and interact. And so we would create opportunities like that. But of course, with the pandemic, one of the first things we had to do when we were allowed to open was we had to make it only private. So that meant that groups were either coming in and just being able to, and figuring out how we can get groups through an escape room experience designed for 10 people as a group of 3, because they only had 3 people who wanted to come. So that was sort of an adaptation on our part. But then as we continued to see that I was one of those people who really thought, oh, okay, well, this will, we'll be back to business as usual by October. And we're very clearly well beyond that. So we also went virtual. I worked with my husband, who is much more technologically minded, to figure out a way to have a streaming system so that we can use Zoom, like what we're talking on right now. And from the comfort of your own home, you can be in our sets, which again are totally immersive. And you have a on-camera host, and you also have a secondary camera that helps you keep track of your inventory. What has been really important is trying to help people understand that the expectation of the experience should be different. If you go and you're like, I want to play an escape room, and you're like, these were so fun, it's actually harder for me to satisfy those guests who are expecting the in-person escape room, because the virtual escape, it's just a different medium. It's a different way of telling stories, and it's a different way of communicating. We also have been quite fortunate that while we're not allowed, we had to roll back and not offer in-person events anymore. We are still allowed to host video photography shoots for production purposes. And Chicago has a thriving arts community, and people want to create, which is really nice. And we've been, because our sets are lovely and expansive and nuanced, they've been really helpful in creating the right kind of atmosphere for folks to be able to do a product shoot or shoot a music video. So we have been doing a great deal of not event rentals, but production rentals. And finally, one of the things that we were able to start producing while we were allowed to gather in small groups. And then we transitioned to virtual because we were transitioning the rooms to virtual. And then we were going to have to transition the murder mystery series. So I wrote and developed a murder mystery series that utilized each of the sets specifically that we have in the premise. And that, again, still allowed us to do our, provide artists in the community with meaningful work, and again, doing it in a safe, socially distanced way. So I think also, again, being a mission-driven company and having, okay, well, we can't provide work for artists in Chicago by doing live escape rooms. How else can we do this? Great. We'll do it virtually. So we hire an artist to be the camera person. We hire actors to do the murder mystery. And it's been fun and interesting. And again, sometimes emergency or necessity is the mother of invention. And sometimes it really just means that you don't get to do it quite as well as you would like to, or outside of the pressure cooker, but sometimes you still just got to get it done.
Right. So basically, you've demonstrated that you have to be able to respond to any situation that surrounds you, whether it be economic, whether it be pandemic or whatever it is. But as long as you're willing, able to kind of absorb what's going on and respond accordingly, that's how you got, your private event module. That's how you got your murder mystery module. That's how you've converted some of your rooms to a virtual experience. It goes to show you that you're still staying on top of what you're doing in terms of your business versus what's going on around you.
Yes. And I think that there's definitely, for me, it's helpful. There are a lot of things I can't control. I can't control when the governor allows us to work or not work. And my job is to trust that they're consulting with the CDC and doctors, and they're making the best big picture choices for the city. And my job is to work and be creative and expansive within the confines of what I know to exist. Yes, it's totally frustrating to be open, be closed, be open, be closed. And I'm not a restaurant. I'm not, losing $15,000 worth of hamburger every time I have to close. Right. But it has been nice to also be able to still bring entertainment to people even. And now one of the things that's nice is that, a silver lining is now this is something that we have. And even after the pandemic, this means that if there's a lovely family and half of them are in the US and half of them are in France, they can all play an escape room together.
Absolutely.
They just, again, will have to be able to do it virtually.
So that kind of falls in line to my last question. What's your view on valuation? And I think, and when I mean valuation in terms of maximizing the value of your business, it sounds like you are actually doing what you need to do. You're not sitting tight and letting the world kind of come back to normal, because we don't even know what that might be. So in terms of value, you're always looking for A, ways to expand revenue, and B, ways to reduce costs to get the bottom line maximized going forward. Did I say that right on your behalf?
Yeah, I think you have a good sense of that. And it is interesting. The second location that I opened with investors, with partners. And that's where my advice of be very careful who you get into a business marriage with, because divorce is ugly. And apparently business divorce is just as common as, domestic divorce in this country.
Yes.
So we did have to go through this process of valuation, and it was difficult because it's a, unique industry. We couldn't do a lot of, comparables. It was a fairly young business, so we couldn't do a timeline. And there was a lot of unknown factors in that the business wasn't operating optimally. So, but how do you evaluate based on what it could do or what the potential of it is? And I think that one of the best ways to create a more solid valuation is to, like you said, make sure that you have the diversity of revenue streams. And it doesn't mean I suddenly go into, Escape Artistry is now also a timeshare company.
Right.
I don't know anything about timeshares. Why would I do that? But if there are ways in which I can expand, it can be as small as, now I also sell t-shirts. So after someone plays an escape room, do you have the ability to make a little bit more money off of your, customer base by giving them a product that they can have as a keepsake? If you're creatives, can you help make more money by helping to host their event? But I think also, again, the valuation comes with playing to the strengths of the company and making sure that whatever it is that you are doing as extra revenue streams and added value, that you can do it well.
Absolutely. So we're about at the end of our time. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to mention to our audience? Anything that is on your mind that I missed?
So the title, or I don't know, I guess, is Building Better Businesses.
Building better businesses.
And I think it took me a while to really get so one of the things that, at least, and maybe this is more specific to me, I'm used to a theatrical production, a film production where it has a beginning and a middle and an end. And I know what that end date is normally, give or take a month or two. And with a business, you have to both make your plans for the short term, but you also have to make your long-term plans. And long-term goals were something that was really new concept to me. And I didn't realize that those long-term plans can absolutely include an exit strategy. Because one of the things I found was that I was just feeling really stuck and really like this has to go on forever. And I feel like if you are going to be an entrepreneur and you are going to run a business, you are going to spend more time working than a lot of people. And you're probably smart and quite capable and could work for a company and do a 9 to 5 and, have someone else tell you what your job is, and you show up and you're available to do your job during these times. And then you can go and live your totally separate life outside. But when you're an entrepreneur and you run the business, it's sort of a all the time thing. Even if you're hanging out with friends, playing golf, you're thinking, you have stuff, churning in the back of your mind.
Right.
And I think that for me, remembering to include myself in the equation of the business and my personal happiness and satisfaction, as well as for what that meant for me, was figuring out how and when I could exit the business if I wanted to. Was it, okay, I need to make a certain amount of money, or I need to be able to get the business to a place where I could sell it, or I need to set a timeline so that I need to, if I made this much money by the time my lease runs out at this date, and have those things already understood so that you don't have to make those decisions in a sort of a tizzy or a last minute stressful situation where you've had time to sort of think about it and take it for a walk and figure out how it's going to impact all the different sectors of your business, your staff, your income for your family, all of those things.
So I will just add one comment before I ask you the last question, is that you're talking about exit strategy. It could also be expansion strategy. It could also be a synergistic strategy. It could be a strategic strategy. But maximum valuation, no matter what that next step should be, should always be paramount with what you're doing.
Yep. And I think that, again, in many respects, if you are building a business that is, driven by you as a person, it needs to be something that is rewarding to you. So if what you see is that, if what I really wanted to do is be building the escape rooms, well, you build the escape rooms once, but then you run them. So maybe I would need to, if I was dissatisfied with running the escape rooms, pivot my business model to something that was much more satisfying and fulfilling to me. Maybe we specialize in building the escape rooms, and then I'd have to learn about marketing to other companies and how do I get that out versus, the thing that I do really like is the engagement with the customers and the, putting on a fun bespoke event for people.
Right.
So
yeah, clearly what you're saying,
what it is that you want.
Yeah, clearly what you're saying, it's a never-ending evolving process. So last thing before we go, Maren, how can people get in touch with you? So let us know how they can find you on the web, how they can call you. You don't necessarily need to give me your physical address because they don't need to drive to your house. But if they want more information, how do they get in touch with you?
Of course. Well, Escape Artistry has a website. It's escape-artistry.com. So ESCAPE-ARTISTRY.com. You can call the box office during business hours. Our number is 773-789-9535. And of course, you can also just email the box office at escape-artistry.com. Again, our businesses do have 2 physical locations in Chicago in the Wicker Park neighborhood, but you're definitely going to want to make a reservation or call in advance. We have had people just kind of try to show up for a walk-in, and unfortunately, we can't accommodate those right now because COVID.
Good words of advice. Thanks so much, Maren, for your time, and I appreciate your sharing your insights, and this was terrific. Thanks so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks again for having me.